Hello, Valley Schuss fans. Welcome to video 2, where Murray and I will continue our conversation about the history of Valley Schuss, the ski resort in Orangeville, Ontario, Canada. Murray and I are still dealing with some Zoom issues, so again, on this video, you will see me on the video, and you will only hear Murray on the audio portion. You won't see him on the video portion. And then I end the video. We had another technical difficulty where we had some issues at the end where Murray and I could talk to each other, but the video froze. So that's where this video will end this evening. But I think you'll find this one fascinating. Some things I learned. I did not know how the name of the ski resort came about, so you'll find that out this evening. Got a couple of pictures. We just started to go over the pictures on this video. Unfortunately, when we had some more technical issues. So stay tuned. The next video, video 3, will include more pictures. And I love looking at the pictures and talking to Murray about the pictures and just listening to him with his wealth of knowledge of the ski resort. And I don't know if you've picked up on just how detailed Murray is with his memory. It's just amazing how the details that he remembers from back then, and I just find it very fascinating. And there again, I really appreciate Murray taking the time and sitting down and talking to me about the ski resort. So without further ado, enjoy video number 2. Murray, good evening. How are you doing this evening?
Very well, thank you.
All right, so let's pick up where we left off. So season 1, a little highlight there. You guys got the resort up and running. Unfortunately, Mother Nature didn't cooperate and produce a whole lot of snow, but you guys made it through the season. After speaking with you on the first episode, I wanted to, as I was looking through my notes and some other pictures, did you have, as far as like a ski school, well, I'm trying to think what they call it, the ski patrol, did you have anybody that was teaching or managing? Is it Hansi Hinnezier?
We had a manager from Austria, Hans Hinterseer.
Yeah, was he there at the very beginning, at the first
Yeah,
season?
Dad hired him. He was there at the beginning, not for the first winter, not before that, but he was the manager. He lived in Toronto and managed a service station, I think, as his other job, like mostly during the week. And he'd come up on weekends, and he brought several of his friends from Kitzbühel, Austria, as ski instructors. Names later if you like them, but even I think the first winter, but maybe not the first winter, he knew people in the ski sales business in Toronto, and there was this guy who set up a little shop in the chalet to sell even clothing and skis and other stuff. So there was quite an interesting group of folks around. Pretty sure even the first winter, although I'm not positive on that one.
So tell people about Hansi. What is like his background, the significance of him joining the resort, or his family?
Okay, well, his name Hinterseer. His brother had been a racer for Austria at the Squaw Valley Olympics 2 or 3 years before, and won some race, giant slalom, I think. That would be Ernst Hinterseer. So the name was kind of known for two people who listen to the sports broadcast or whatever, watch the skiing scene. So Hans was the manager, and his sidekicks, Helmut Colonia and Erwin, his brother, and George Heckenberger and a couple of other people were there. They loved to party. So every Saturday night or Friday night, they'd party. I slept above the kitchen, so I had to put up with the noise, but we all twisted. Twist was the rage at the time, and we all twisted on Saturday nights.
So was that a big deal, scoring him to be the manager? I mean, that's obviously his brother was the Olympian, but to me that sounds like pretty interesting.
Well, I really can't answer that. I mean, the name, I don't know whether that mattered, what his name was. He knew how to manage. Actually, his wife, I can't remember her name, Margie. She was a kitchen designer for hotels and restaurants and things, and she helped design the layout of our kitchen. So they were both on board before the winter, I guess, because this kitchen was her design. He was not like a nuts and bolts mechanic guy who got up on the ski lift and welded or whatever, but he knew how to manage well enough. I don't know too much about his skill set, but he was a very personable guy, easy to talk to, great dancer. They'd do their slap dances as they had done in Kitzbühel a few years before, where he met his Canadian skier wife. Anyway, the group was great. It was just what we needed. And we did indeed have ski patrol, although it was kind of minimal early on, but it got better as time went on. Always difficult to get enough ski patrollers. I did some of that myself, just because I had to. But we kind of covered the bases, and the grooming was done by local, mostly Gordon, but I did some. I think even back then, I remember driving the Bombardier and moving snow around when we didn't have much.
So do you know how your dad came upon Hansi?
No, I think he may have advertised in a newspaper in Toronto. I'm not sure about that, to be honest.
Your dad may have advertised looking for a manager?
I can only guess that.
Okay. I think that's pretty interesting, because to me that brings a lot of significance, because obviously he had other choices in the valley at that time, and he chose Valley Schuss as opposed to any other resort. I don't know if they were looking for a manager at that time. But,
well, I don't know that, but what I know is that the name Valley Schuss was Hans's name. He came up with it. We were looking for a name, and we couldn't use Hockley because it had already been taken. We didn't really know about anything else that we could get. So Hans came up with this Valley Schuss. I mean, the word, I didn't even know what it meant, I don't think, but it was a German word or Austrian, whatever. And it was well known to Europeans and probably to some Canadians as well. If you schuss down the hill, you just went straight down the hill.
right.
Real fast.
Well, that's very interesting. So that's a good little piece of knowledge right there. So that's how the name came about, was from Hans Hinnezier.
Yep.
All right, very good. All right, so I'm trying to just so you had those folks on board for season one. So we talked about that on a previous episode. When season one ended and we're rolling into the summertime, do you remember much of what was required during the off season of what you were doing to prepare for season two?
Well, quite a bit. Yeah, I was still in school at that time, but which meant I was there weekends, but in the summer I was there almost all the time. We had to do considerable repair. We had inadvertently or carelessly caused quite a bit of erosion at the bottom of Murray's Run and sent a whole lot of silt down past the chalet into the yard of Rosie and Percy Smith, about which they were very unhappy, needless to say. So we had to bulldoze that. We probably did some more tree clearing, on various trails. I did most of that. I was the guy with the chainsaw, and I don't think we started any new trails at that point. However, somewhere along the line, we made some more trails. In the summer, I cut grass. We had a little Ford tractor. And I think we even planted a few trees that first summer that we had got from a neighbor, trees about 1.5 feet high, because we knew we had a wind problem at the top of the hill. The planting of trees, I don't think happened that first year, although we might have. We got trees really cheaply from the Ministry of Natural Resources. They were just basically giving them away. And me and my pals would plant them, wherever we thought it would work. But I'm not sure they came that first summer, those trees.
I do remember as a kid along the fifth line. Did you guys get a lot of trees that you were able to plant basically along the fifth line there where the road ran because for some reason I thought either my father or somebody talked about all the trees that you planted basically right along the roadside on, basically on your property, up to Fifth Line. Is that true or?
Well, yeah, those trees were planted there because we had like 20,000 trees basically shoved at us,
Right.
mainly to keep the snow on Murray's Run and near the top of the hill. So the first priority was to plant them near the top of the hill, which was, totally bare. There were no trees there at all when we went there.
Yeah.
So
Now, something I was wondering, like, on that previous episode, we were talking about, this endeavor that our fathers were going on and not having really any experience in this business, and then, mentors. But at that time, was anybody familiar with like as far as, a snow fence or planting a tree line, how that would affect, holding the snow on certain parts of the ski hill, or was it just go have a stance where you planted the trees?
Well, it was, as I said, with the location of the Murray's Run and even the lift, it was kind of not all that hard to see what needed to be done. The places where we put trees, in retrospect, I think I would have made Murray's Run a bit wider right from the top, but we made it the width we had. At that time, people skied on fairly narrow trails in various, places. But basically, it was me and my dad saying, well, okay, this is where we're going to plant trees. It was basically a snow fence. We had snow fence for a number of years that we'd put up and take down. I don't know why we even took them down in the summer, but we did. So that's one of the things I did was, put snow fence up and wrestle the stakes out of the ground. But the trail layout was kind of intuitive and not that complicated.
Was there any standard at the time about how wide a trail should be?
No, we didn't know anything about that. Well, now that maybe my dad had helped to build this little ski hill. I don't think they even had a toe up in this mining town he lived in north of Sudbury, Levac. So he and his mining pals had built a little ski club in this, on a hill near this town. So he may have known as much as anyone about, how wide a trail needed to be. Certainly the steepness of it, it was just determined by the terrain. We didn't have a lot of control over that. And well, once we were in the trees, we could do what we needed to do, but it was a valley. Murray's Run, from half of it was in a little rather narrow valley. So we had to bulldoze a lot to dig the sides of the hill so we could get the bottom flat. It was like a little tiny creek in the spring. It didn't run all year long, but that water that went down Murray's Run was what was the source of this erosion that, created rather deep ditches near certain spots, which all had to be filled in that first summer. And I think even subsequent years, we had to do some bulldozing to take care of our own negligence, or whatever you call it, innocence.
Right. All right. So the summertime was basically just the normal maintenance and of the second season. So now we're talking about 62 going into 63. You basically had your staff on board. Was there anything that stands out in your mind, it's going into season 2? So you kind of experienced season 1, weren't really impressed with the Mother Nature and the amount of snowfall, but with Hans.
Well, it was pretty much the same for 3 years. We figured if things were good all winter long, including the Christmas holidays, there were a maximum of 10 weekends we could actually ski on. If we didn't have Christmas holidays, that meant no money was made at all. And we really did not have much in the Christmas holidays. So I suspect we lost money all 3 first years. I mean, we never made a lot of money at Valley Schuss. It was not a gold mine.
How many skiable days? We'll just start off with the first 3 seasons when it wasn't that great before the snowmaking started. But how many skiable days do you guys think you average per year? So
I've never thought of an average, but the thing was, come Christmas holidays, if we didn't have snow, we were in trouble. And if we did, we were happy. But that's not a snow belt, so we may do mostly with just weekends. I think maybe we worked into sometimes a Friday or a Wednesday. We tried different things. It was pretty hard to drag people out of Toronto, unless the snow was great in Toronto. The radio weather and the snow conditions determined quite a bit about how many people came.
Right. What was the typical break for the winter time? Like the holidays, was that a week or 2 week time frame where did you guys actually stay open during the week as opposed just the weekend?
Pretty much weekends only, almost all the way through. I mean, I don't think we were ever open all week long except Christmas holiday. No, we weren't ever open all week long because you just couldn't get people there.
So when you say Christmas holiday, is that like a weekend and then?
Oh no, it's at least 5 days and usually a week, maybe even a little more than that. Christmas and New Year's and the time in between, and maybe a day before and a day after.
So you're saying you were open all those days or just on the weekends of those?
No, all of those days.
Okay. So I don't know, I'm thinking if you're talking like 10 weeks, that's 20, you're thinking somewhere like 30, maybe 35 days of.
Not a chance. I don't think we were ever open 35 days.
Say 30 days?
It was a pretty short season. I never did count them, to be honest, because there were times when we would miss a weekend because it would rain. We'd have the January thaw.
Mm-hmm.
You can't ski on ice. So it was dicey. The weather was not really very kind for ski hills at that time.
What would you say the window was for the ski season? Let's just say Mother Nature was cooperating, was it usually like late November to mid-March?
Not in late November. We probably never skied in November.
So
if we got snow on the ground enough to ski on by Christmas, that's the 25th of December, we were lucky.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So then you're only talking so you got the end of December, January, February. Do you typically remember what time, and did you make it all through March or?
Not all through March. No, the people would drop off because they'd think, oh, there's no snow in Toronto, so there's no snow up there. And the client or the number of people that came dropped off very quickly in March. So it's a very short season.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're talking January and February, so basically we'll just say
yep, that's about it. I remember at the end of the year, if there was a little bit of snow on this certain trail at the Wildcat and my birthday, which was the 30th of March, I would take my skis up and I'd make 2 turns on this little spot of snow and say, I skied on my birthday. But we were done by then for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing that's amazing to me, back then, looking at that time frame when people were, like our fathers were, doing these kind of adventures, with the ski resorts, whatever. I mean, it's such a short season, and then trying to think that, for making any money. I mean, wow, that's it doesn't.
I don't think it ever made money. I was not a party to that stuff, but we always had bills that would carry over through the summer. Dad would pay them a little bit every month just to keep the contractor, whomever, on board so he would help us out the next winter.
Right. Yeah.
It was a tough business.
Yeah. So, one thing, so that was pretty typical through, you said, the first like 60 to 63, 64. I mean, do you remember after that time, did you have some good winters before you had the snowmaking?
I really didn't keep track of that very well. After the 3rd winter, I was finished high school and I went off to Europe for a winter. That would be the year the Olympics were held in Innsbruck, 63, 64. And I wasn't there at all that winter. Okay. But I don't know what the snow conditions were. I know that we managed to limp through each winter, and still be able to ski. And to be sure, there were some really nice conditions. I don't think the average snowfall there would top 30 inches or something like that, maximum in a year.
Right.
That was not just enough to cover the ground often.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. All right.
Not a snow belt.
Yeah, exactly. Like we were talking about last night. All right, I'm going to see if I can pull up some pictures that you sent me some very nice pictures. So let me see if I can start off here. Can you see this picture of the top of the hill with the green?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, I love this picture. Do you have any idea what year or time frame this picture was taken?
Well, for sure it was after 1970 because the new TBar was there,
Yep.
and the Palmolive was not there. And my dad's house beyond the top of the hill, I don't know exactly when it went up, but there it is. This
Yep.
was taken by a guy who would take pictures of people's places and then he'd come and sell you the picture. You can see the trees going down the edge of the fifth line, even at the top of the hill, but they went all the way down, 6 or 7 rows of them to keep snow off the road mostly, but just to get rid of trees because we were planting trees everywhere. The ones down on either side of Murray's Run and around the top of the hill, they were our first priority, and they worked pretty well.
Yeah.
But there are other places.
I'm not sure how well people are going to be able to see my cursor, but so I don't know if you can see where I'm kind of circling right now. This would be the top of the of the lift line here, and then we referenced Murray's Run. So if I'm going correctly, Murray's Run is right over in here.
That's beyond Murray's Run. Murray's Run is the next one.
This one?
That's Murray's Run.
Okay, so that's when you're referencing Murray's Run, you're talking this trail, right?
Yeah, it was the most used because it was just the most obviously steep at the top and then, a bit of variety, consistent to the bottom. The others were less consistent.
Yeah. Now I'm assuming when you opened at the beginning of the season, this run here and these two areas were open all the way for skiing.
I'm not sure. I see your.
Yeah. So here's the top. Yep. Here's the top of the lift. So if I came down here right next to Murray's Run,
that would be called the Wendigo, and it joined Murray's Run about 3/4 of the way down.
Okay.
It had a short, really steep pitch on it, about 2/3 of the way down. The only real steep terrain, steeper than the top of Murray's Run. So if you really wanted to show off, and make a couple or 3 turns on that steep part, that's where you would do it. Okay. To the other side of the lift, down towards the fifth line, it was almost a chore to get down sometimes because it was very, very, not very much slope at all. And it did end, maybe not the first year, at the top of this other TBar that we put in the 3rd or 4th year. I can't remember which year that was.
Okay. When I'm looking at this picture, like right here, the lift line, did you guys have to build this kind of ramp? It looks like it's it's built up.
That was bulldozed there. The fill, I'm not sure exactly where the fill came from nearby. Okay. But it was all put there by bulldozers.
All right. So now there again, so was that something your dad as an engineer, instead of like running coming right up the natural slope of the hill, they decided to put this so-called ramp in?
When the Palmolive was installed initially, again, it was quite steep at the top. And I think in order to save towers, they basically said you got to have some sort of a ramp there. It was not that big. As I recall, when you're going up the Palmolive, at that steep part of the top of the hill, if you've ridden a ski tow, a TBar or whatever, you'll know that if you're going up a real steep slope and you jump, you go right off the ground because the lift is lifting you up and your skis hardly had any weight at all on them at certain spots. So that was a problem. So I don't know whether we put more fill in that early on, but it was a problem for probably 2 or 3 years. And then when the TBar came in 70, a lot more fill was put in there. But for quite some time, you had to almost slap people on the hands if the young kids would be going up there and they'd jump up and down and their skis would go right off the ground, and they'd even land and put them on sideways and just do silly things and get themselves in hot water with the guy at the top of the lift.
Right. Well, while we're looking at this picture, so if you got off the lift and you went to the basically skied off the back, and if you can see my cursor there, where you kind of go down around the back, where did that go?
That's the Caribou Trail,
Okay.
which went down a little, you could call it a valley, I guess. It was consistently easy, and right down where your cursor is, down this other little valley, or same valley, but it turned right there. And without too much bulldozing, you could get all the way to this chalet at the very bottom. It was very, very slow. You had to push the last several hundred yards. So we advertised 2,000-foot pommel lift, and what was it, half-mile trails or something like that. We were stretching in both cases, but that trail was quite long and quite doable for a beginner.
Right.
Yeah, it might have been wider in spots than it was, but we ended up later on bulldozing in places to make the trails wider, or this or that.
Yeah. So this is Murray's Run. What was this over here?
Well, I don't think that ever had a name, but that would be what you skied down in order to get to the jump.
Okay.
Ski jump. The Austrian guys had been familiar with ski jumps in Europe, and they wanted a ski jump. So if you went down that hill and off this, it wasn't a well-designed jump, but it was the place we had because you could get a good head of speed up, and when you went over the lip, you landed on a really steep slope below it. So I remember jumping there a little bit, not a whole lot, but they liked doing it. They had a pair of jumping skis.
Right. Okay.
At that time, I think you were supposed to have a jump if you were really going to be, up in the good ski resort category, but jumping just was not a moneymaker. It wasn't not that popular, really.
Right. As I'm looking at this picture, so if you came off the lift, was this actually a trail right here where you could kind of come off the lift and then go down right here?
That was another way to get at the Caribou.
Okay.
A little steeper and not very wide. I planted those trees, and I probably should have planted them farther apart. I do remember taking my slope groomer up and down that trail. It was just wide enough to get our grooming equipment through.
Okay. Yeah, I just noticed that looking at the picture. It looks like there was a little cut.
It was another way to get at the Caribou, and a faster way. And if you're a good skier, many of them would take it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let me get out of this picture, and I'll just show you this. I think I've sent you this picture before, but as I was walking across the Bruce Trail, this is remnants of the snowmaking. So that was there. I think the last time I was there was in 2019, and that was still laying around.
Yeah.
So
if you want the story behind that, I can give it to you. But are we getting ahead of ourselves?
Go ahead. What's the story?
Well, we didn't get snowmaking until 1970 when we bought the TBar. This is at the time when I think it had changed into becoming a semi-private club or something like that. Because, like I say, the place never really made enough money to really justify it. Dad worked all this time full-time as an engineer for a couple of different companies. So he subsidized it, but we knew we were going to fail if we didn't get snowmaking. So he sold them a ski lift because he was in that business at the time, and bought a snowmaking system. I helped install the snowmaking, not so much the ski tow, because I was building another ski resort at that time, but that was the cover over the hydrants, which is like a couple of well tiles down in the ground to the pipes, which are all buried 4 feet or more below the ground. So that was the cover. It's lined with polyurethane foam sprayed on to insulate it from, so that the long pipe there is the stand pipe, like a fire hydrant in a town or city. But it had a valve at the bottom so that when you stopped making snow and turned the valve off, it would drain itself and not freeze solid. But after the ski resort was sold, that stuff was all sold, rather. It was all just left, and somebody scavenged maybe the more valuable parts. In that case, it would have been a valve at the bottom that was worth $60 maybe at the time. I don't know, but I was not involved at that time. I just know exactly what that is. And I got down in those holes to try and monkey wrench various things in them. They weren't very big, and I was tall, so it was kind of cramped in there. But it's too bad whoever didn't, they didn't take them away, because they don't look very nice.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta kind of, you gotta kind of look for them, but as I was looking around, I found them. So can you
Well, if
see
you,
this? Can you see this picture now that I got it?
yep.
So what year do you think this picture was taken?
I was looking at these the other day, my own versions, and if you look really closely, I wish if I had a cursor, I could help you, but there was the bottom of this, the second lift was a T-bar. Pretty sure I can see it, but the little, the white blotch in the center, like that's the parking lot there. But if you go to the right, there, that's roughly the little T-bar hill that we built because you could not see the ski hill at all from the parking lot.
Hmm,
So lots of people would come and say, well, this is not a ski resort. I'm going somewhere else.
right.
So we had a rope tow, which you could see easily, but it wasn't a T-bar. So we hurriedly built a T-bar out of bits and pieces of stuff. And it wasn't the greatest T-bar, but you could see it.
Yeah. This picture is kind of hard for me. So this is the fifth line over here where the cursor is.
Yeah.
All right. And this was the road coming in.
That
And
was
this
the
obviously
parking
was parking lot.
Yeah.
Where was the chalet? Should have been up in here somewhere, right?
Well, it's right under your cursor there, but you can't see it. It's just hidden by some trees
Okay.
farther towards the ski hill. I
Okay.
think where your cursor is there is pretty close to where the drive terminal was for that first lift. It subsequently got moved way over to near the fifth line. Here I'm pointing my finger, but I can't see, or you can't
Yeah.
see it.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, things moved around, or that T-bar got moved just to a better spot that worked better.
Yeah. Is this, let's see. So if this is the, you come off the Hockley Valley Road, here's the fifth line. There's where you would enter the parking lot. If you keep going up, this was actually the fifth line right through here, right? Going up through the woods.
I don't think that's actually the fifth line. That's a trail that we built again to get access to some really steep terrain, right where the arrow is there now. That was the fifth line coming out of the woods.
Oh, okay. Yep.
You
Gotcha. Yeah. Right
could
through
not
here.
see most of the fifth line. You can see it once it gets to the top of the hill there.
Yeah. No, I got you. Yeah, that makes sense. I can see the road basically back through here and it came up and I can see
Yeah.
where that would have been a trail. Okay.
Yeah, that was a trail. It was, we never really were able to groom it because the short, steep stretch was way too steep to groom.
Interesting. So
Wasn't you-
was it one of the steepest, as far as the grades? Was that one of the steepest?
I think if you took a level to that steep part, it would be steeper than just about anything else that we couldn't groom it. So we eventually made another cable tow on a steep hill called the Pinnacle or something like that. And it was kind of an expert trail, not as long or as high as the others, but it was, the one that the experts really wanted.
Yeah.
Just off to the right of that. Other photos I can point it out to you.
Yeah. I think I do have now, just for everybody, these are all the photos. These are Murray's photos that he sent me. And so that's the ones we're looking at now. I love this picture. This is probably one of my favorite pictures
Yeah.
you sent me. I just think this is beautiful. And I'm wondering if this is my father right here. For some reason, that kind of looks like that. But
I have no idea.
yeah. The one thing I noticed about this picture now would that looks like it'd be the T-bar because I see people side by side.
Yeah, I have two photos taken a few years apart from exactly the same place. That's the second one. That's the T-bar. The Palmolive went pretty much up the same route, but in the other one, we'll look at it maybe later. Pretty much the same route, but T-bar didn't have a bend in it. The Palmolive did, and that was problematic.
Right. Now, this is kind of a good trivia for anybody that's going to be checking this stuff out, but there's something that should be here later on that's not here right now. And I remember this as a boy being up here, you and your father building a bridge basically across here. So people could ski literally down through here and underneath the lift line. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah.
That was so we could have a trail on that side of the lift, and it wasn't a bad trail at all. I don't remember a name for it, but we needed more trails. It wasn't a huge amount of variety, so we just did that one. Bulldozed another little valley that we had used as a dump. Actually, we had to bulldoze all the garbage from 3 or 4 years of using it, buried it all.
Do you remember what year this picture was taken, or roughly?
Well, it would be after 1970 because the TBar turned up in 1970.
Okay, all right. Well, that would make sense because, like I said earlier, I was born in '62, and I remember when you and your dad were building the bridge. So
Yeah, we built the bridge. I don't think, well, maybe you can't see it, and it may have been built right away. I don't think we had to dig out the lift line in order to build that bridge. I guess we did it right away when we put the T-bar in. I know that it wasn't all that high. You had to kind of duck to get through it. I don't know if we were able to run the bombardier through there. Eventually, I think I used to have to come down the hill and turn around and go back up because of the bridge not being all that high.
right. Yeah, because you guys just used timber or big logs or whatever, big trees that you cut as far as the
Yeah, I guess there were some hardwood trees to support it. I remember going to Toronto to pick up the decking, which was British Columbia fir. We went to Chepperman's Wreckers in Toronto and brought back a truckload of these big thick planks, which went across those trees.
I noticed it looks like I lost my video.